This blonde-haired young man is named Arthur. At this moment, his subordinates were bringing him a robot maid. This beautiful robot maid was named Marie. Although this robot did not display any emotions, Arthur still regarded Marie as a real human being. The company he was about to inherit was capable of creating a robot so lifelike. It truly deserved to be the largest corporation in Japan. Even Arthur himself could not help but admire it. Zeitz was the corporation he had mentioned earlier. Returning to Marie, Arthur was unexpectedly still suspicious of her. At this moment, he stepped closer to observe Marie carefully. Suddenly, the clock beside Arthur's desk exploded. Although Arthur was startled, he was fortunately unharmed. At this moment, Arthur noticed that Marie's expression did not change at all. Thus, he secretly confirmed that Marie was indeed a genuine robot. Shortly after, a cleaning lady passed by. Arthur believed that she was the one who had swapped the clock. Therefore, he ordered his subordinates to arrest the cleaning lady. Arthur even discovered that someone had planted a recording device under the desk. As a result, he ordered his subordinates to remove it immediately. This was also the reason why Arthur deeply hated humans. Many people approached him only because they wanted to kill him. Humans merely act according to their own desires. They hurt others without any hesitation. Naturally, Arthur despised this deeply. He only trusted inanimate objects that lacked emotions. The reason Arthur became like this was because he was the heir to a major corporation. However, Arthur was an illegitimate child. Because of this, he was deeply hated by members of his family. Arthur had experienced numerous kidnappings and imprisonments. They had even attempted to kill him but failed. From Arthur's perspective, if he discovered someone's deception, he would not hesitate to erase that person from this world. Unexpectedly, the robot maid standing before Arthur was actually a real human. She accepted this job only to repay her mother's debts. However, Marie never imagined the job would be this difficult. She feared that her true identity would be exposed in the near future. This made Marie even more confused and anxious, especially whenever she faced Arthur at close range. Later, Arthur ordered all the servants to leave the room. He wanted to be alone with Marie. Contrary to his previous cold image, when Arthur was alone with Marie, he revealed himself to be a robot fanatic. Even Marie could not believe this was real. Arthur kept staring at her continuously. This made Marie extremely flustered. Soon after, she found an excuse to leave immediately. At this moment, Marie took the chance to eat, because she had not eaten anything since morning. During this time, Arthur's subordinate gave Marie some instructions. Arthur was currently surrounded by many dangers. Therefore, Marie needed to stay by his side to protect him. If Marie successfully completed this mission, she would be allowed to go to school. It turned out that this subordinate was aware of those dangers. He did not know when Arthur would become a target. Therefore, he assigned Marie to stay close and protect Arthur. However, he was still extremely cautious about this plan. If Marie's secret as a human were exposed, and Arthur discovered the truth, then all of them would be doomed. Meanwhile, Marie was still taking advantage of the time to eat, because only when Arthur took a bath could she eat. On the next morning, even though it was still early, Arthur was already in a bad mood. Even the servants became frightened whenever they encountered him. This was due to Arthur's irritable personality. However, his strictness was entirely reasonable. Therefore, everyone could only obey him. As the heir to a famous corporation, Arthur's schedule was extremely busy. After finishing school, he still had to attend a dinner with the son of the corporation's business partner. However, Arthur disliked that son very much, simply because the man had no manners while eating. Therefore, Arthur felt extremely irritated when he was around that man. However, due to the nature of his work, he could only endure it. Suddenly, Arthur gently touched Marie's hand. It turned out he wanted Marie to pretend to be human and attend school with him. Naturally, Marie had no choice but to follow Arthur's orders. After that, the two of them went to school together. Their presence quickly attracted the attention of everyone around them. Marie never imagined that one day she would attend school in such a way. After all, she had never experienced anything like this before. A while later, Marie accidentally bumped into two male students in the hallway. Although she immediately apologized, Marie's completely expressionless face made the two boys extremely uncomfortable. They even imagined Marie as if she were a robot. Unexpectedly, Marie was already used to situations like this. It turned out that even Marie's mother was the same way. Whether Marie was praised or scolded, her expression never changed at all. Returning to the present, Arthur suddenly appeared, causing the two boys to run away. After that, Marie thanked her master, because Arthur had helped her out of that situation. Unexpectedly, Arthur really liked Marie's emotionless face. He even found it incredibly cute. After school ended, Arthur quickly returned home. At that moment, Arthur's half-brother came to visit him. His name was Maynard. Maynard had just returned from overseas and came here immediately. Naturally, he also deeply hated Arthur. Because if Arthur did not exist, Maynard would have certainly inherited the Zeitz Corporation. Although he always appeared cheerful and friendly on the outside, Maynard was extremely cruel on the inside. In fact, Maynard was the one who had ordered multiple assassination attempts on Arthur. Fortunately, Arthur managed to survive those dangerous incidents. It turned out that Arthur was fully aware of everything Maynard had done. However, he chose to remain silent, because Arthur alone could not stand against an entire powerful family. Marie seemed to understand the current situation as well. When night fell, Arthur stood alone in his room. Deep in thought, he recalled the first day he arrived at this mansion. Suddenly, Marie entered the room. She interrupted Arthur's thoughts completely. Arthur's current mood did not seem very good. Even Marie could sense that something was wrong. At this moment, Arthur had a favor to ask of her. It turned out he wanted to rest his head on Marie's lap. Unexpectedly, Arthur's mood became much more relaxed. It had been a very long time since he had felt this at ease. Since childhood, Arthur had never had anyone by his side as an ally. Therefore, he tried his best to live without relying on anyone. Arthur's father had deliberately chosen him as the heir. Because of that, Arthur had to become even stronger. Suddenly, Marie spoke up. She wished for Arthur to trust her, and she promised that she would always stay by his side as his ally. Unexpectedly, whenever Arthur was with Marie, he finally revealed the face of a teenager his age. As a result, Marie gradually wanted to protect Arthur even more. On the following day, Arthur had a public speech to give. Therefore, he left early to have enough time to prepare. However, the car that had taken Arthur earlier was a fake, because Arthur's real driver had only just arrived. Unexpectedly, Marie chased after Arthur at lightning speed. As expected, Maynard was the mastermind behind this incident. Marie successfully caught up to Maynard's vehicle. This shocked everyone present. After that, Maynard took Arthur to an abandoned building. His goal was the same as always. Maynard only wanted to kill Arthur. Only then would he have the chance to inherit the Zeitz Corporation. However, Arthur had already taken one step ahead of Maynard. The entire incident had been recorded by Arthur using a button camera. At that moment, Arthur immediately issued a threat. If Maynard dared to harm him, Arthur would upload the video to the internet without hesitation. Hearing this, Maynard became extremely uneasy. As a result, he quickly tried to escape. Only 2 of Maynard's subordinates were left. However, the 2 of them were not afraid of anything. They even intended to send Arthur straight to his grave. Fortunately, Marie appeared at that moment. She suddenly charged toward the 2 men. With Marie's exceptional martial arts skills, she successfully defeated both of those wicked men. After that, they could only flee in panic. Because Marie's strength was overwhelming, a container of gasoline was accidentally knocked over. Combined with the cigarette butts left earlier by those men, the nearby staircase suddenly burst into flames. Arthur began to have trouble breathing due to the thick smoke. Marie immediately tried to calm him down. Soon after, Marie discovered an emergency exit. She then looked for a way for both of them to escape. Because Marie absolutely could not allow Arthur to die. At this moment, she wanted Arthur to go outside first, while Marie planned to escape afterward. However, Arthur immediately rejected this plan. As a result, Marie had no choice but to reveal her true feelings. Whenever Marie was by Arthur's side, she always felt genuinely happy. Most importantly, Arthur was the first person to make her feel this way, because she had almost never felt happy with anyone else before. Indeed, Arthur was extremely important to Marie. Her body was made of sturdy metal, so what Arthur needed to do now was leave immediately. In the end, Arthur followed Marie's instructions. Marie used her strength to lift Arthur and help him escape. Meanwhile, Marie lost consciousness right after that. Fortunately, Arthur managed to bring her back home. At first, Arthur thought Marie had been damaged. However, she slowly regained consciousness. This finally allowed Arthur to feel somewhat relieved. Unexpectedly, Arthur began to recall what happened earlier. Because Marie had smiled like a real girl, that moment made Arthur deeply doubt himself. It felt as if he were falling in love with a robot. As a result, Arthur became extremely troubled by this complicated situation. Several days later, an important party was held at Arthur's mansion. Arthur was assigned to act as the host. It turned out that Arthur's father was on a business trip overseas, so Arthur was only filling in for him this time. As the heir of the family, Arthur did not allow himself to make a single mistake. Suddenly, Arthur had a favor to ask of Marie, because he could not eat bell peppers at all. Therefore, Marie had to handle this matter. But absolutely no one was allowed to notice it. Soon after, Card and Lady Charlotte of the Rusty family appeared. Their presence was incredibly imposing. Even Marie could sense it. It turned out that only Cart and Charlotte were Arthur's allies. Although Charlotte had just met Arthur, she was certain that something good had happened to him, because Arthur's expression was very different from the last time they met. Indeed, nothing could escape Charlotte's keen eyes. At this moment, Arthur introduced Marie to Charlotte, a robot maid created by Zeets with their utmost effort. However, the robot was far too realistic. This made Charlotte suspect that Marie might actually be human. Arthur's subordinate immediately pulled Marie aside, because he wanted to avoid unnecessary trouble. After that, Marie continued with her duties. She successfully removed the bell peppers from Arthur's food. At that moment, a suspicious stranger sneaked into the party. Fortunately, Marie arrived in time to deal with the suspicious individual. She continued patrolling the area to check security. Unexpectedly, someone appeared behind Marie. Without hesitation, she taught that person a lesson. However, that person turned out to be Arthur himself. The two of them quickly went into a room to rest. Arthur never expected hosting to be this exhausting, but since it was his responsibility, he pushed himself to complete it well. Indeed, being by Marie's side gave Arthur tremendous strength. Arthur immediately regained his energy. He leaned close to Marie and whispered affectionate words to her. However, this sudden action left Marie feeling flustered. She had no choice but to leave and go somewhere else. Marie decided to return to the party to continue her duties. But her heart suddenly began to race for no clear reason. She could not even focus on anything she was doing. While walking down the hallway, she suddenly discovered something. Someone had secretly planted a bomb in a hidden location. The culprit intended to use this method to deal with Arthur. Unfortunately for him, Marie noticed it in time. She immediately taught that man a lesson. However, Marie was careless and attracted the attention of those around her. At this moment, she truly did not know how to act. Fortunately, Arthur arrived just in time to explain everything. It seemed that he was already aware of the bomber's malicious plan. And indeed, that was the case. The mastermind behind it was none other than Maynard. At this moment, he was extremely furious, because all of his plans had been ruined by Marie. When night fell, Marie wore the outfit that Arthur had prepared for her. Unexpectedly, it suited her appearance perfectly. Since the party had ended, only the two of them remained. Arthur truly wanted to enjoy this moment. Suddenly, Marie bowed her head and apologized to him. She believed that today's party had been ruined because of her. However, it was not entirely her fault. It was simply because villains had deliberately tried to assassinate Arthur. Marie looked just like an ordinary girl. As a result, Arthur could no longer restrain himself. He suddenly kissed Marie on the forehead. This caused her to freeze. Completely unsure of what was happening, Marie forcefully pushed Arthur away. Then she quickly ran off to another place. This left Arthur feeling somewhat disappointed. Meanwhile, Marie did not know how to face him anymore. She could only blame it on a malfunction in her systems. However, Arthur seemed perfectly calm. He showed no signs of anger toward Marie. This only made Marie feel even more confused. But things would become even more suspicious if she continued acting flustered. As a result, Arthur began to notice her strange behavior. From that moment on, Arthur constantly observed Marie, no matter when she was working. Sometime later, Arthur's subordinate delivered shocking news. Marie had suddenly been dismissed from her position as of today, because Arthur had already begun to suspect her since yesterday. If things continued like this, Marie's secret of being human would eventually be exposed. To resolve this issue, Arthur's subordinate arranged a new job for Marie, and that location was very far away from here. As for the robot maid, the subordinate had developed a new model. This new robot possessed overwhelming destructive power. As for Marie, she could only accept this decision, even though she still wanted to serve Arthur as his maid. At this moment, she had no other choice. Suddenly, Arthur appeared behind them. He did not understand why Marie was leaving. At the same time, the second robot appeared. It detected the level of danger posed by Marie. Therefore, Marie temporarily told everyone to stay back. It turned out she intended to face the robot alone. However, that robot's power far surpassed Marie's. She was no match for it. At the critical moment, Arthur stepped in to protect Marie. As a result, he was severely injured. At that moment, Marie decided to use all her strength to take revenge for Arthur. She shattered the robot into hundreds of pieces, all because of Marie's ultimate kick. After that, Arthur spoke seriously with Marie. Her recent behavior had been very strange. Therefore, Arthur believed that Marie was malfunctioning. To conceal the truth, Marie had relied on the second robot. This revelation left Marie completely stunned. When it came to her, Arthur always thought in an unexpectedly naive way. At that moment, Arthur suddenly lifted Marie into his arms. He wished for the two of them to stay together forever. Unexpectedly, This was also what Marie wanted. Therefore, Marie returned to work. Several days later, two villains disguised themselves as staff members to poison Arthur. Unfortunately for them, both Marie and the other robot noticed it in time. As a result, the two girls decided to teach those villains a lesson. Once again, Maynard's plan failed. This was exactly why Arthur always hated humans. He believed they were foolish creatures. To Arthur, robots were far more trustworthy, and he felt that having Marie alone was more than enough. Suddenly, Arthur became curious about how Marie recharged her energy. He wanted to observe it with his own eyes. However, Marie had no idea what to do, because she was just an ordinary human. If Arthur were to discover the secret, then Marie would be finished. After all, Arthur deeply despised deception. Returning to the present, although Marie did not know how to recharge her energy, she still tried her best. However, her actions looked rather clumsy. Perhaps no one would believe something like this. Unexpectedly, Arthur found Marie's behavior very cute. Even Roy, Arthur's subordinate watching from outside, felt completely helpless. On the following morning, Arthur scolded Roy. He complained that the security had become far too lax. That was why so many intruders had managed to break in. However, the real reason lay with Arthur himself. Because he frequently fired people, the guards were constantly being replaced. At this moment, Roy suggested that Arthur take a break and relax. Arthur had looked exhausted lately. Unexpectedly, Arthur used this as an excuse to go out with Marie. He was hoping that Marie would act like his girlfriend. Therefore, Marie decided to play the role properly. She began saying affectionate words. This made Arthur completely unable to resist. Because of Marie's overwhelming cuteness, every action Marie made felt just like a real couple. As a result, Arthur was filled with joy beyond words. Although Marie was imitating couples she saw on the streets, she felt that her feelings were quite different from theirs. So Marie tried to make up for it in her own way. After that, she attempted to find a 4-leaf clover. Marie wanted to give it to Arthur as a gift. She hoped it would soothe Arthur's weary heart, even just a little. At this moment, Arthur could feel Marie's sincerity. This made him genuinely happy. Later, Arthur took Marie to a place filled with memories of his parents. Unexpectedly, Arthur asked if he could kiss Marie. Although Marie showed no expression, her heart was pounding wildly inside. As Arthur slowly leaned closer to Marie, a knife suddenly fell from above. Fortunately, Marie noticed it in time. She immediately ran to the top of the tower to investigate. There, a strange young man was already waiting. His name was Noah. Marie immediately moved in to attack him. However, this opponent was much harder to deal with. Noah effortlessly dodged all of her attacks. Suddenly, Marie revealed an opening. Noah seized the chance and pushed her downward. Luckily, Arthur was there to catch Marie. Otherwise, she might not have survived the fall. Even after the next morning arrived, Marie could not stop thinking about the mysterious man from yesterday. She resolved to kill him if they ever met again. Unexpectedly, the young man she mentioned earlier turned out to be the new transfer student at school that day. As expected, Noah was Maynard's next plan. Marie immediately headed toward Arthur. She wanted to inform him about Noah's identity. Unexpectedly, Noah was already waiting at the door. The two of them began communicating through martial arts. Neither Noah nor Marie was willing to back down. However, Marie was ultimately no match for him. Unexpectedly, Noah confessed that he had fallen in love with Marie at first sight. However, Marie only saw Noah as a lunatic. She could not understand Noah's true intentions. At this moment, Noah revealed that he had spent time preparing a gift for Marie. However, she was shocked when she saw what it was. It turned out to be information about Marie's past. Even though Roy had tried to erase everything, Noah somehow managed to obtain it. In fact, he intended to use it to threaten Marie. If Arthur discovered that she was actually human, then Marie would be completely finished. While the two of them were talking, Arthur suddenly appeared. At that moment, Noah began provoking Arthur. He did so by acting intimately close to Marie. This made Arthur completely unable to endure it. It seemed that Arthur was feeling jealous. At this moment, Arthur ordered Noah to duel him, and the winner would get Marie. Suddenly, 7 chickens ran past them. It turned out they had escaped from the school's research lab. Taking advantage of this, Noah suggested using them for the competition. Whoever caught the most escaped chickens would win. Arthur immediately accepted Noah's challenge. Soon after, the match began. Unexpectedly, Arthur caught the first chicken. This excited the girls standing nearby. Meanwhile, Marie felt uncomfortable. She noticed that wherever Arthur went, a group of girls always followed behind him. Naturally, Arthur paid no attention to that at all. As for Marie, she wanted to help Arthur catch the chickens. However, Arthur immediately refused, because this was a battle of male pride. Arthur did his utmost to secure victory. Meanwhile, Noah enlisted the help of his friends. He even used tools to catch several chickens. At this point, both sides had caught the same number. Only one chicken remained to determine the winner. As a result, both Arthur and Noah became extremely focused. The decisive moment had arrived. However, the final chicken was unusually tricky. It swiftly ran away. Marie feared that Arthur might not be able to win, so she decided to help him. Unfortunately, Marie accidentally fell into the water. Arthur remembered that Marie was supposed to be a robot, which meant she should not fall into water at all. Therefore, Arthur immediately pulled her out. He was afraid that Marie might be damaged. Fortunately, she regained consciousness. This eased Arthur's worries somewhat. However, Arthur had already lost to Noah, because Noah seized that moment to catch the final chicken. Even so, Noah refused to accept the result, because Arthur had abandoned the competition to save a girl. Even if Noah won, it would not be honorable. After they returned home, Roy had no idea what had happened at school. Meanwhile, Marie tried every possible way to apologize. Because Arthur had fallen ill due to her, Marie felt extremely guilty. She swore to do everything she could to help Arthur recover. After hearing this, Roy took out an item. It was a patient care device that belonged to Arthur's father. Roy had heard that these items could cure all illnesses. However, he did not actually know what was inside. As for Arthur, even though he was seriously ill, he continued to work diligently. Seeing this, Marie did not allow him to keep working. However, Arthur could not take a break, because he had responsibilities with the student council. Arthur was preparing to host the school's anniversary celebration, and since it was approaching soon, he could not rest. But Arthur's health continued to deteriorate. This time, Marie decided to use the patient care item. When she opened the mysterious box, she was completely shocked. It turned out to be nothing more than a very revealing nurse outfit. At that moment, Marie suddenly pushed Arthur onto the bed. Then she boldly climbed on top of him. This left Arthur completely flustered. He had no idea what Marie planned to do next. However, Arthur obediently followed her instructions and rested. First, Marie used her forehead to check Arthur's temperature. This surprised him slightly, because the way Marie did it was just like a normal person. Marie did not know how to explain herself, so she hastily made up a rather silly excuse. However, Arthur believed it without doubt. Next, Marie needed to wipe the sweat off Arthur's body. Therefore, Arthur had to take off his shirt. Unexpectedly, this made Marie just as embarrassed. But considering Arthur's condition, Marie forced herself to complete the task. By accident, she discovered Arthur's back was covered in scars. Normally, Arthur never allowed anyone to see them, but Marie was an exception. Since childhood, Arthur had always lived close to death. Therefore, he had been injured many times. The scars on his body were deep and severe. That was why they could never fade away. At that moment, Marie gently hugged Arthur from behind. Perhaps she could feel the pain he had endured. Marie promised that from now on, she would be the one to protect Arthur. Sometime later, Marie sensed someone breaking into the house. She immediately taught the two intruders a harsh lesson. Unexpectedly, there was another man at the window, but Marie dealt with him in just a second. These warm and caring actions of Marie made Arthur feel incredibly at ease. For the first time, he no longer felt alone. However, Marie felt guilty, because she had deceived Arthur by pretending to be a robot. Even so, Marie still wanted moments like this to last forever. She wanted to spend as much time as possible by Arthur's side. Several days after Arthur recovered, the school anniversary celebration finally arrived. Arthur took on the role of the event's host. After that, Arthur handed Marie many batteries to recharge her energy, because he knew the day would be exhausting. While the two of them were talking, Noah suddenly appeared to interrupt them. He then stepped forward and hugged Marie. This made Arthur blush with jealousy. However, a senator was approaching, so Arthur left to speak with him. As a result, Marie was temporarily left alone. Noah suddenly disappeared. Marie sensed that something was wrong. She immediately went to look for Arthur. Unfortunately, she was one step too late. Noah had successfully gotten close to Arthur, and that senator was also working with Noah, helping him carry out this plan. Unexpectedly, Arthur was still able to move, so he quickly grabbed a weapon to defend himself. However, Noah injected Arthur with a drug. It was a special sedative that weakened his hearing and vision. Unexpectedly, Noah immediately injected a second dose. This caused Arthur to start collapsing. Meanwhile, Marie was desperately searching for Arthur everywhere. Suddenly, a knife was aimed straight at her. There was no doubt it was Noah. At that moment, Marie prepared herself to fight, even though she had never defeated Noah before. After a long period of training, Marie believed this day had finally come. Soon after, The two of them began to clash. However, Marie could not hold out for long. She was eventually forced down onto the floor by Noah. At that moment, Noah began saying insane things. He desperately wanted to be by Marie's side, because he loved her true human self. However, as he spoke, he tightened his grip around Marie's neck. This made it difficult for her to breathe normally. At that moment, Marie noticed that the strength in Noah's right arm was weaker. She immediately took advantage of this weakness to break free. After that, Marie smashed a light bulb. This plunged the room into darkness, allowing Marie to escape from that place. However, Noah was not about to let her go so easily. He immediately attacked with a weapon. But the one standing there was actually a robot that looked exactly like Marie. She was the genuine robot Maid. With its overwhelming power, Noah was defeated in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, Marie quickly went to look for Arthur. After finding him, she prepared to take him home. However, Noah suddenly appeared again. It turned out that he had defeated the robot Maid. And now, it was Marie and Arthur's turn. It seemed that Noah knew Marie had feelings for Arthur. But he also knew a harsh truth. The one Arthur loved, in Noah's eyes, was the robot version of Marie, not the real human Marie. Noah was curious about how Arthur would react if he ever discovered this truth. At that moment, Noah kept striking at Marie's weak points. It seemed he was slowly manipulating her. He spoke words meant to hurt her deeply. Unexpectedly, Arthur suddenly woke up. He covered Marie's ears with both hands, so she would not hear Noah's cruel words. Noah was utterly shocked, because despite the amount of drugs he had injected into Arthur, Arthur was still able to move. Even in such a situation, Arthur was still worried about Marie. It was true that Marie had an expressionless face, but she had a heart just like anyone else. No matter what happened, she would stay by Arthur's side. After that, Marie finally defeated Noah. Meanwhile, Arthur lost consciousness completely. Marie stared at him for a long time. Arthur was the first person who had given her so many emotions. And he was also the one she truly loved. On the following day, Noah did not come to school, because Marie had critically injured him the day before. It seemed that Noah would never return to school again. Unexpectedly, he suddenly appeared in front of Marie. Soon after, Arthur arrived as well. Marie could only feel anxious. She was afraid that Arthur would discover her secret, because Noah had said far too much earlier. Fortunately, Arthur did not think much of it. At first, Marie only came to Arthur's house to work as a robot maid. She needed money to repay her mother's debts. That was why she accepted such a difficult mission. Because of her emotionless face, Arthur believed Marie was truly a robot maid. Even now, he still knew nothing about her secret. However, Marie now had another major problem. She had secretly fallen in love with Arthur. At first, Marie did not notice it herself, but Arthur's brilliance slowly captured her heart. At that moment, she realized she could not stay by Arthur's side for too long. Because if she did, she might not be able to endure it. Suddenly, Marie accidentally broke Arthur's treasured vase. Roy thought Arthur would become furious, but the truth was completely different. To Arthur, Marie was now the most important person. However, Roy had noticed that Marie had been making too many mistakes lately. If this situation continued, Roy would definitely send Marie back to the manufacturing facility. Marie overheard their conversation. This immediately made her feel sorrowful, because it seemed she would not be able to stay by Arthur's side for long. Shortly after, the robot maid appeared behind her. Because Roy had successfully repaired its components, the robot maid was able to return. After analyzing Marie's data, the robot was certain that Marie had developed feelings for Arthur. It even intended to lend Marie a helping hand, no matter how difficult things became for her. However, Marie could no longer stand close to Arthur, because the brilliance radiating from him was too dazzling. It was something Marie could not endure. Unexpectedly, the robot came up with a new idea. Marie should wear a pair of sunglasses. This would help her adapt to Arthur's overwhelming radiance. However, Arthur suddenly stepped closer and removed her glasses. It turned out Arthur wanted to see Marie's face in its most natural state. That was the reason behind his sudden action earlier. Naturally, Marie could no longer endure it. She suddenly fainted on the spot. This made Arthur extremely worried. If anything were to happen to Marie, Roy would send her back to the factory. The robot maid quickly carried Marie away from the scene. It turned out that Marie was only pretending. After realizing her own feelings, things that once felt easy around Arthur had now become incredibly difficult for her. However, the robot maid saw things differently. If Marie dared to face her feelings and thought about the person she loved, an unprecedented power would surge within her. That power would surely make Marie stronger. After hearing the robot's comforting words, Marie felt deeply grateful. She then ran to Arthur to apologize. Unexpectedly, Arthur was the one who apologized first. This completely caught Marie off guard. It turned out Arthur felt she had been overworking herself. As a result, Marie's energy was gradually being drained. What surprised Marie even more was how deeply Arthur cared about her. Arthur himself did not know when Marie had become so important to him. This left him utterly confused. At that moment, Marie confessed her feelings to Arthur. At first, Arthur was completely frozen in shock. Then he immediately embraced Marie. However, a stranger suddenly sneaked in through the window. He interrupted the two of them at that very moment. The intruder even threatened them with a gun. Naturally, Marie taught him a lesson he would never forget. She moved at lightning speed. In an instant, Marie subdued the intruder. As for Arthur, once he left the scene, his mind went into chaos. After recalling everything that had happened, combined with Marie's special feelings toward him, Arthur became deeply obsessed. He began suffering from severe hallucinations involving Marie. To deal with this situation, Arthur had no choice but to avoid Marie altogether. At this point, he relied solely on the robot maid. This made Marie feel a little jealous. That day, Charlotte came to visit the house. She quickly noticed Marie. However, Marie looked unusually downcast. When Marie tried to ask Arthur something, he bluntly ignored her, leaving Marie completely at a loss. Meanwhile, Noah was surrounded by classmates at school. However, he showed no interest in any of it. Unexpectedly, Marie approached him. It turned out she intended to keep an eye on Noah. This was also how Marie planned to protect Arthur. However, Marie's adorable behavior only made Noah pay even more attention to her. After school, Marie could not find Arthur anywhere. It turned out he had gone to the park alone. Therefore, Marie abandoned everything else to follow him. Just as expected, someone attacked Arthur from behind. Fortunately, Marie arrived in time to stop the attacker. Unexpectedly, there were many more enemies involved. At that moment, the robot maid appeared, with only a few basic moves. The robot effortlessly dealt with the group of assassins. After that, Marie and Arthur finally had the chance to be together again. At that moment, Marie did not hesitate to apologize to him. Then she honestly confessed her true feelings. Marie believed that she had started to become selfish. After seeing the robot being so close to Arthur, Marie realized she had grown jealous. Unexpectedly, Arthur suddenly embraced her. To Arthur, Marie was the number one person in his heart. Even though many tempting things surrounded him, Marie would always come first. From now on, Arthur wanted to treat her in a special way, because he did not want Marie to get hurt. Even though she was a robot, Arthur seemed to have already developed feelings for her. On the next morning, even though the driver arrived 10 minutes late, Arthur was not angry at all. This surprised everyone. It turned out that today was Arthur's birthday. Yet someone like Marie had no idea about it. However, among the 365 days of the year, Arthur hated his birthday the most, because villains often used this day to give him gifts. But those gifts were nothing but knives or bombs. These were memories Arthur never wanted to recall. However, Marie felt differently. She believed birthdays were important days. So Marie wanted to do something for Arthur. She wished for Arthur to have a truly happy birthday. After that, the two of them arrived at school. At that moment, many female students crowded around to give Arthur gifts. But he paid no attention to them at all. Arthur had already decided not to accept gifts from classmates. As for Marie, she was invited by those girls to talk after school. It turned out they wanted Marie to join Arthur's fan club. It was an extremely perverted club. They only wanted Arthur to look at them with contempt. The girls knew very well that Arthur hated humans. So whenever they greeted Arthur, he could only force a stiff smile in response. And those girls were obsessed with Arthur's annoyed expression. However, Marie did not understand what was going on at all. So running away seemed like the best option. Unexpectedly, the girls immediately chased after her. Marie accidentally bumped into Arthur. Thanks to his presence, the girls finally backed off. After that, Arthur informed Marie that he had something to do, so he would be coming home late today. Marie did not need to stay and wait for him. She decided to use this chance to surprise Arthur. While Marie was cooking, Noah suddenly appeared. He suddenly rushed forward and hugged Marie. This made her completely uncomfortable. Marie tried to attack Noah, but due to Noah's agility, he managed to dodge all of her moves. Noah continued to stay and bother her relentlessly. Eventually, Marie finally finished the cake. However, it did not match her expectations. At that moment, Noah finally left, because the robot maid had detected something unusual. It seemed the security system was too lax. So the robot maid began checking everything carefully, returning to Marie, even though the result was different from what she imagined. Fortunately, it did not look too bad. However, the robot accidentally bumped into Marie, causing the cake to fall to the floor and get ruined. Marie's expression immediately turned gloomy. She decided it would be better not to give it to Arthur, because the cake no longer looked appetizing. Sometime later, Arthur returned home. He saw Marie looking very downcast. This made Arthur a little curious. However, he did not dare to ask her directly. As for Marie, even though her cake was far from impressive, Marie wanted Arthur's birthday to be truly special. So she decided to give Arthur the cake she had made earlier. Even though it did not look pretty, it was filled with all of Marie's heartfelt feelings. Even Arthur was deeply surprised by this. He even thought that from now on, perhaps he would no longer feel gloomy when his birthday came, because Marie was now by his side. When night fell, Arthur personally prepared a small party for Marie. However, all the food on the table was made up of batteries. After that, Arthur gently patted Marie's head. Today was the first time she had ever been treated so specially. On the next day at school, Marie was tricked by a member of a school club. That person told her Arthur had fainted in the research room, so Marie immediately rushed over. However, when she arrived, she was tied up by several people. It turned out they were members of the Machine Enthusiast Club. They knew that Marie was a perfect robot. They were even curious whether she might actually be human. So today, they wanted to seriously examine Marie. After that, they planned to dismantle her. Fortunately, these people were nothing but fools. Marie successfully tricked them into untying her. However, she could not escape on her own. Thanks to Arthur's sudden appearance, Marie was finally able to get away safely. From that day onward, Arthur suddenly began acting more affectionate toward Marie. He would Zhu Dong Li hug her, and when they went to school together, he always held her hand. This attracted the attention of everyone around them. However, Marie felt a little embarrassed, because she was not used to this at all. Marie simply wanted things to stay normal between her and Arthur. Several days later, their school held its annual sports festival. Since Marie was studying alongside Arthur this year, she also had the chance to participate in the event. Suddenly, a stranger approached Marie. He even knew her identity. It turned out his name was Daryl. He was a student from a rival school. That was the school Marie was currently competing against. At that moment, Daryl had something to ask her, because he did not know which event Arthur was participating in. That was why he came to ask Marie. Unexpectedly, Daryl turned out to be Arthur's close friend. Even Marie was surprised by this. She never imagined Arthur had a close friend. After obtaining the information, Daryl immediately left. At that moment, Amy accidentally knocked over a giant ball. It rolled and crashed into Marie. After seeing this, Marie quickly helped Amy. As for Arthur, everyone was eagerly awaiting his event. At this moment, Arthur began to show his true ability. His smooth and coordinated performance sent the audience into excitement. Arthur easily overcame every obstacle. However, someone hidden in the crowd was causing trouble. This led to a problem with the horse Arthur was riding. Arthur was thrown off and fell backward. This immediately drew everyone's attention. At that moment, the robot Maid began analyzing the data. As expected, it quickly identified the cause. After that, Arthur went to rest. Marie followed closely behind him. Unexpectedly, Arthur discovered a pellet bullet. It was likely the reason he had lost the match. After a while, Arthur suspected that the culprit was Daryl. It turned out the two of them were not as close as Marie had thought. They had met back in elementary school. At that time, Arthur did not yet know he would become the heir. He was constantly bullied by classmates. But Arthur never told anyone about it. Daryl shared a similar background with Arthur. He was also often bullied at school. Because of that, the two of them began to see each other as friends. Since they shared similar circumstances, they were able to truly empathize with one another. From that point on, Arthur and Daryl did everything together. However, one day Arthur made a shocking discovery. Daryl was hanging out with the group of bullies. He had even begun plotting malicious schemes. All of them were aimed at Arthur, because Arthur was superior to Daryl in every aspect. This caused Daryl to grow jealous of him. Returning to the present, Marie fully understood the situation. She immediately left the area. It turned out Marie needed a place to vent her anger. She could not accept what Daryl had done, because his actions had hurt Arthur deeply. Therefore, Marie had to take action. She wanted to make Daryl stop his evil deeds once and for all. Originally, the final match was supposed to be Arthur versus Daryl. However, Arthur had already been injured earlier. As a result, Marie decided to take his place and compete instead. At that moment, Noah also appeared. It turned out he wanted to compete alongside Marie, because Marie alone would not achieve good results. After all, a team needed enough members to be formed. Soon after, everyone directly faced off against Daryl. Even members of Arthur's fan club joined the match, because they also wanted revenge on Marie. The match grew increasingly intense. However, the The tactics used by Daryl's school became more extreme. They used various tricks to eliminate their opponents. But Marie's team did not fall so easily. Meanwhile, Arthur learned that Marie was competing in his place. Returning to the match, this turned into a truly fascinating confrontation. Marie stepping in to replace Arthur also piqued Daryl's interest. However, he was confident that Marie could not win. Even so, Marie was not afraid at all. She was confident that she would emerge victorious. At that moment, Daryl's team executed their pre-planned scheme. They used airgun pellets to interfere with Marie's team. This caused everyone to lose their balance severely. Marie was separated from her teammates. However, her feet had not touched the ground yet. Therefore, she still had the ability to keep fighting. Marie successfully closed in on Daryl. Before delivering the decisive blow, Marie openly berated Daryl. It was because of his deception that Arthur had grown to hate humans so deeply. And Marie would never forgive Daryl for that. In the end, Daryl's team finally fell. As a result, Marie was the one who claimed victory. After that, Arthur appeared between the two of them. He unexpectedly delivered a powerful punch to Daryl. Because Arthur had discovered Daryl's cheating, he even had solid evidence. At that moment, Arthur dared to confront Daryl head-on. Because he was no longer a child who only knew how to cry. From now on, Arthur would face evil with strength. He would no longer run away like he did in the past. And the only person who made Arthur this strong was Marie. Thanks to the strength Marie gave him, Arthur seemed to have become a completely new person. Soon, the first semester came to an end. Summer vacation was finally welcoming Arthur and Marie. However, things did not look easy for Marie, because her test scores were extremely low. As a result, Marie had to take a retest. Even Arthur was shocked by her scores. They were far worse than he had imagined. At that moment, Arthur began to worry. If Marie failed the retest, there was a strong chance she would be expelled immediately. Arthur was out of ideas, so he suggested that the two of them go to the library after school, so Arthur could tutor Marie personally. While Marie was on her way to the library, she suddenly ran into Noah. It turned out he had been waiting there for quite some time. Noah even knew that Marie was about to take a retest, so he offered to tutor her. After all, studying was Noah's specialty. However, Marie could not believe this at all. She thought Noah was plotting to kill her, but things were not as Marie imagined. Noah only wanted to help so he could see her every day. Suddenly, Arthur also appeared. Noah seized the opportunity and asked to study together with them. Before Arthur could respond, Marie was suddenly pulled away by Noah. When the three of them started studying together, Arthur focused seriously on tutoring Marie. However, Marie could not concentrate at all in this situation. Meanwhile, Noah had a set of review materials, so he wanted Marie to take a look at them. However, those documents were actually full of information about Marie. Naturally, all of her secrets were hidden within those materials. Marie became flustered the moment she saw them. It turned out that Noah was threatening her once again. Marie's situation was becoming increasingly complicated. After that, the study session continued smoothly on the surface. When Marie went to put the materials back, Arthur was left alone with Noah. Noah then began provoking Arthur with his words. He claimed that he understood Marie better than anyone else, even though Marie lived together with Arthur. Noah said he knew secrets about her that Arthur did not. This made Arthur extremely uncomfortable. He could no longer keep his composure. Fortunately, Marie returned at that exact moment. Only then did the tense atmosphere finally ease. Several days later, Marie's hard work was finally rewarded. Although her score was not very high, it was enough for her to avoid being expelled. Marie immediately rushed to Arthur to tell him the good news. Arthur was genuinely happy for her. But if Arthur had the choice, he wanted to be the only one tutoring Marie. At that moment, Marie quietly realized something. Arthur had likely been jealous this entire time. Suddenly, Arthur remembered the upcoming summer vacation. With only 1 week left until the semester ended, Arthur began planning a trip. He wanted to travel to a southern island with Marie. Unexpectedly, both Card and Charlotte joined the trip as well. However, it was not just the four of them. Everyone connected to Arthur was also present. It seemed that Noah was secretly preparing some kind of plan. However, Arthur had no idea about it at all. Meanwhile, Maynard had already begun executing his own plan. He activated experimental robot number 26. It was enormous, and its power far surpassed that of the Maid robot. When Roy saw footage of experimental robot number 26, he was completely shocked. It turned out the robot had been created during the development of the Maid robots. That was why Roy partially understood its terrifying power. However, he did not understand why it was here. In truth, everything was part of Maynard's scheme. Soon after, the Maid robot quickly activated the launch platform. It would directly confront experimental robot number 26. Marie used this opportunity to take Arthur to a safe location. But as soon as they reached the cliff behind the island, experimental robot number 26 blocked their escape route. It seemed they would be trapped here for quite some time. At this moment, Marie had no idea how things would turn out. Suddenly, her stomach growled loudly. It was likely because Marie had not eaten anything all day. However, Arthur suddenly felt curious, because Marie was a robot, yet her stomach could still make noises. Marie quickly made up another silly excuse. And once again, Arthur believed it without any doubt. Thanks to that, Marie successfully avoided being exposed. After that, the two of them entered the forest to search for food. At that moment, Marie accidentally discovered a bundle of wildflowers. This reminded her of her past. Back then, Marie was still living with her parents. Her life at that time was truly happy. However, tragedy soon struck her family. Because of that, Marie was often neglected by her relatives. She rarely returned home. During those times, Marie could only pick wildflowers to admire them. After that, Marie planned to catch some fish for Arthur. However, Arthur immediately stopped her, because he did not want Marie to face any danger. At that moment, heavy rain suddenly began to fall, so the two of them quickly looked for a place to take shelter. This was the first time Marie had ever sat so close to Arthur. It made her extremely flustered. Meanwhile, Arthur felt guilty, because he wanted Marie to collect data about a joyful vacation. Yet he never expected things to turn out like this. However, Marie did not mind at all. To her, as long as Arthur was by her side, she would feel happy no matter where they were. Moved by her sincerity, Arthur responded with words that expressed his true feelings. This left Marie completely frozen in place. She never expected Arthur to be so straightforward. It made her want to reveal the truth immediately. Unfortunately, she could not do that. Just then, the robot maid appeared to rescue them, because it had to repair many systems. It arrived late. After that, Marie and Arthur safely returned home. However, Maynard was not satisfied with this outcome. He had devised countless plans, all for the sole purpose of killing Arthur. Yet none of them had ever succeeded. When everyone returned to school after the vacation, the school announced an upcoming autumn festival. Fireworks would be held as part of the event. Marie asked Arthur if they could watch them together. However, Arthur was busy with student council duties, so he had no choice but to refuse Marie's invitation, even though he truly wanted to watch the fireworks with her. This made Marie feel slightly sad. After that, Marie wanted to befriend Arthur's fan club, so she could watch the fireworks together with everyone. Marie baked cakes as gifts for them. She wanted this to be her first step toward making friends. However, before she could act, Noah suddenly appeared. He immediately ate the cake Marie had prepared for the girls. But the taste was so bad that Noah could barely swallow it. Unexpectedly, Noah realized Marie's plan to get closer to the club, so he had already prepared a plan of his own. All that remained was waiting for Marie to act. However, when Marie finally tried, the club reacted violently. They only wanted to expel Marie. Even so, Marie wanted to try one more time, because this was the first time she had ever tried to make friends. Therefore, Marie refused to give up. Unfortunately, she failed once again. The girls were extremely angry at Marie's attempts to approach them. In the next class period, the teacher began questioning each student. Someone had broken her cherished vase, so she was determined to find the culprit. The lesson would only continue if the teacher managed to identify who did it. Otherwise, there would be no fireworks either, because the most important thing now was finding the culprit. This annoyed the entire class, because everyone was looking forward to the fireworks festival. Unexpectedly, Marie stepped forward and confessed, even though Noah knew very well that she was not the culprit. Marie understood that everyone wanted to enjoy the fireworks with their friends. If she could protect that happy moment for everyone, then she was willing to take the blame. As for the real culprits, unexpectedly, they looked extremely pleased with themselves, because no one noticed anything. Noah appeared from a distance at that moment. He had been eavesdropping on their conversation earlier. This made one of the men in the group furious. He rushed forward, intending to teach Noah a lesson. Of course, that reckless guy was no match for him. Noah only needed a single punch to scare the bad guy out of his wits. After that, the culprits had to go to Marie to help her. However, she looked completely confused and knew nothing. A short while later, when everyone was waiting for the fireworks in the sky, Marie decided to approach the girls to make friends. At that moment, she bravely removed her wig. Marie had to face this courageously. However, the girls in the club bluntly rejected her, because their viewpoints were completely different. But if it was just watching the fireworks together with Marie, the girls were willing to do that. At that moment, Marie suddenly ran toward Noah. It turned out she wanted to express her sincere gratitude to him. Because thanks to Noah, Marie gained the courage to reveal her true self. Suddenly, Marie accidentally fell to the ground. Fortunately, Arthur appeared just in time to catch her. As a result, Marie was not seriously hurt. After that, everyone watched the fireworks together. This was truly a wonderful scene. However, Noah left immediately afterward, because he had no interest in this kind of thing. When Marie returned home, Roy handed her a pile of newspapers about her past. Roy thought that perhaps Marie still had some lingering feelings, so he let her look at them one last time for a while. Coincidentally, one of the newspapers fell in front of Arthur. Out of curiosity, he wanted to take a look. Unexpectedly, the information in the article shocked him. Arthur immediately returned to his room to search for information online, but strangely enough, he could not find anything at all, because Roy had already erased everything beforehand. However, Arthur continued searching persistently. In the end, he still found no results. At this moment, Arthur began to grow suspicious, because since morning, he had noticed many strange behaviors. As for Arthur himself, since he could not rely on information from the internet, the only thing he could do was verify it in reality. After that, he observed Marie's actions from a distance. However, everything seemed normal. It turned out that Marie had prepared for this in advance. If she continued to be careless about it, Arthur would sooner or later discover the truth. She even drank oil to refuel herself. However, it was actually just ordinary water inside, but it was enough to make Arthur believe Marie was a robot. After that, Arthur played the piano while Marie stayed by his side. Unexpectedly, Arthur being able to play the piano again was also thanks to Marie, because Arthur had been tormented by his past every day. But it was Marie who brought him salvation. At that moment, Marie suddenly showed a happy smile. This made Arthur feel suspicious, because a robot should not be able to show such emotions. Arthur immediately grabbed Marie's arm. He could clearly feel her heartbeat. Sure enough, Arthur realized the truth. Marie was not a robot at all. One would think Arthur could not bear this truth. But instead, he suddenly hugged Marie, because after everything, she had always protected Arthur wholeheartedly. This gave him a different view of humanity. At the same time, Arthur finally understood that the one he liked was not a robot maid. It was Marie, a real human being. However, Marie was still unaware that the secret had been exposed. After that, Arthur secretly followed them to eavesdrop on the conversation between Marie and Roy. Unexpectedly, they were discussing the secret they had hidden all this time. If Arthur were to discover this matter, then Marie would definitely leave this house, and she would have to go to a very distant place. Because Marie knew that lying would only cause Arthur pain, and a liar like Marie had no right to stay. Unexpectedly, Arthur outside had heard the entire story. However, he chose to keep this matter hidden, because Arthur truly loved Marie. He did not want to lose anyone dear to him ever again. So Arthur made up his mind not to reveal the truth. The next morning, when Arthur met Marie again, his heart was beating faster than usual. Perhaps it was because Arthur had discovered the secret, that Marie was actually a real human being, which caused Arthur's emotions to change so drastically. Even Marie noticed something unusual about him. At that moment, Arthur said it was because he was overworked, so he felt a little tired. Unexpectedly, Marie Zhu Dong Li invited Arthur to rest his head on her lap as usual. However, Arthur could not accept it at this moment, because he felt he was forcing an ordinary girl to do such a thing. So Arthur refused Marie's offer, because to him, it felt no different from being a real couple. Since Arthur had not yet gotten used to this truth, suddenly, a group of assassins tried to attack him. However, Marie immediately counterattacked, leaving them completely unable to fight back. And Marie's cool and overwhelming presence made Arthur extremely excited. However, everything he had done until now was because Arthur feared being exposed. Because of that, he rejected Marie's kindness. This made him feel guilty about himself. So Arthur told Marie she could do whatever she wanted, because no matter what she did, Arthur would be happy. After that, Marie took Arthur to one of her favorite places. It turned out that from here, Marie could see everything. She could even see the house with Roy and the servant robot. Most importantly, she could also see Arthur himself. So as long as Marie stayed here and looked at it, she would feel very comfortable. The workload of Arthur as an heir kept increasing. As a result, he was extremely busy at the moment. Today, Arthur had to go to an amusement park with everyone. It turned out he came here to inspect a project that had been requested earlier. This project belonged to Cart and Charlotte. Unexpectedly, Isabel was also present. She was said to be Arthur's fiancée. However, the truth was not like that. Isabel was actually Maynard's fiancée. But because she liked Arthur too much, things ended up like this. At this moment, Arthur quickly explained everything to Marie. He was afraid she might misunderstand this troublesome situation. This caused Isabelle to become jealous of Marie. Isabelle then stared at Marie with eyes like bullets. Isabelle's intuition told her something. Marie was definitely a human. Even though Arthur knew the truth, he immediately denied it. Arthur did not want trouble to fall upon them, especially since both of them were in a very important phase right now. After that, everyone spent time having fun together. Isabelle was full of energy. She wanted to play together with Arthur. Marie, on the other hand, seemed tired, so Arthur wanted to rest for a while with her. But Isabelle did not agree. She still had plenty of energy to play more games. As for Arthur, he knew that Marie was very thirsty at the moment, but Arthur did not know what to do. Fortunately, Isabelle went somewhere else, so Arthur casually made up an excuse to go to the restroom. That way, Marie could stay here alone to drink water. However, she had only been drinking for a short while when Isabelle suddenly appeared. This completely exposed Marie's secret, because a robot cannot drink water. At this moment, Marie was threatened by Isabelle. If Marie wanted Isabelle to stay silent, she had to help with Isabelle's relationship with Arthur. So after Arthur came back, Marie quickly pulled him along to be with Isabelle. She successfully helped them become closer. Isabelle was probably very happy about this. Arthur, on the other hand, did not care at all. He even felt uncomfortable about it. To be honest, Marie understood her own position very well, so she thought it was best for her to stay on the sidelines and bless them. Because with a status like Marie's as a servant, she could never be worthy of Arthur. However, Isabelle suddenly ran away afterward. It turned out that Arthur had bluntly rejected her feelings. Isabelle nearly fell to the ground while running. Fortunately, Marie caught up and supported her in time. At that moment, Isabelle felt grateful for Marie's actions, so she decided to give up on this unfinished love. Unexpectedly, Marie comforted Isabelle with sincere words. Even Isabelle was deeply moved by this. While the two of them were talking, the area suddenly collapsed. This made the situation extremely dangerous for both of them. Arthur was just as worried. Fortunately, the servant robot managed to save them. At this moment, Marie wanted Isabelle to make peace with Arthur. Unexpectedly, Arthur already knew everything. The person Isabelle truly liked was Maynard. It was not Arthur. As things seemed, Arthur had sensed this for a long time. When Arthur first met Maynard and Isabelle, he noticed that the two of them seemed very close. And indeed, that was the case. Isabelle suddenly revealed the truth. The person she truly liked was Maynard, because he had a wonderful personality. Isabelle had been deeply impressed by Maynard since their first meeting. But when Arthur began to appear, Maynard suddenly changed completely. It turned out that Arthur had taken away his position as the heir. Because of that, Maynard was always thinking about Arthur. Even Isabelle was no longer cared for as before, so she thought that if she stayed close to Arthur, Maynard might pay attention to her again. To Isabelle, Maynard was still number one. In the end, Isabelle apologized to everyone. Because of her, trouble kept falling upon the two of them. When everyone finally returned home, Arthur suddenly rushed in while Marie was bathing. This caused Marie to panic completely. Marie did not know how to explain herself at that moment. After all, everything was already very clear. Arthur quickly tried to leave the place. However, he slipped and fell backward. As a result, the two ended up in an extremely awkward position. Unexpectedly, someone else locked the door from outside. At that moment, neither Arthur nor Marie had anything on them. This made Arthur feel extremely embarrassed. But he was afraid that Marie would feel cold. So Arthur carried Marie back into the bathtub. He planned to sit right behind her. However, Marie did not agree with this, because she was also afraid Arthur would catch a cold. So the two of them began to push and pull each other. Suddenly, Arthur accidentally blurted out that Marie was a girl. This caused Marie to freeze instantly. At that moment, she realized Arthur had discovered her secret. The secret that Marie was actually human. So she immediately asked Arthur directly. She asked when he had discovered the truth. Marie's eyes were extremely serious at this moment. Even Arthur became flustered. After that, he had no choice but to confess everything. Arthur explained that he learned the truth from a previous article. Faced with this sudden revelation, Marie still could not get used to it. She was curious about how Arthur felt right now. Marie's mood was also extremely terrible. She had been deceiving Arthur the entire time. Even Marie felt she was no different from Daryl. Yet Arthur was still gentle toward her. Suddenly, Marie stood up because she had something to say. Even though she was still afraid, and even if Marie were to be hated, she would still accept the truth and speak honestly. After that, Marie planned to leave this house for sure. However, before she could say anything, Arthur suddenly fainted. Soon after, Roy and the servant robot also arrived. They quickly carried Arthur back to his room. After the doctor examined him, it was discovered that Arthur had been poisoned with a special type of toxin. It took some time for the poison to take effect. At this moment, Roy suddenly remembered something unusual on Arthur's back, but Roy had ignored it earlier due to carelessness. Therefore, he blamed himself for not fulfilling his duty. However, Arthur suddenly woke up. The strange thing was that he no longer knew who Marie was. It seemed that Arthur had temporarily lost his memory, but he clearly remembered everything else, except for anything related to Marie. Even though Arthur was in that condition, his personality had hardly changed at all. Because of this, Marie felt more at ease. Everything seemed to have returned to the starting point. It was just like the frightening Arthur from the past. He looked lonely once again, but Marie truly did not know what to do. At this moment, she suddenly wanted to restore Arthur's memories. After all, after the time they had spent together, Arthur had changed. He was no longer as lonely as he had been in the beginning. That was exactly why Marie wanted to help Arthur recover his memories. After that, she took Arthur to places filled with familiar memories. Marie tried her best to bring back their beautiful memories. When night fell, Marie decided to find the antidote for Arthur. Unexpectedly, she chose to do so by infiltrating Maynard's gang. Marie planned to act as his spy to steal the antidote. However, Maynard began to grow suspicious, because this subordinate seemed to be a newcomer. That was why Maynard found it strange. Still, when he looked more closely, he felt a sense of familiarity. In the end, Marie successfully made her way inside. At that moment, she went to Maynard's room. Marie believed the antidote must be inside. Unexpectedly, Noah suddenly appeared. He was even able to recognize Marie in this disguise. At this moment, Noah was curious about her purpose, so Marie did not hesitate and spoke honestly to him. Her only goal was to find the antidote vial. After that, she planned to bid farewell to Arthur. The two of them then began to fight. However, before the battle lasted long, Noah began to reveal information about the antidote. He said it might be located in the basement, because Maynard had been staying down there frequently lately. So Marie followed the clue and went there. However, it turned out to be nothing but one of Noah's jokes. This made Marie extremely angry, because she realized she had been played by Noah. But unexpectedly, Noah had already figured it out from the start. He understood why Marie was acting this way. It turned out Noah knew about Arthur's memory loss. Because Marie was in so much pain, she had come all this way. She could no longer continue lying anymore. When Marie said goodbye to Arthur, it also meant she had given up on the person she loved. After that, Marie ran off to complete her mission. Noah could only stand there and watch. In truth, he did not want to give Marie the antidote, because if he did, he would never be able to see her again. It turned out he had fallen for Marie this deeply. Later, Marie encountered Noah again. At that moment, the two of them were inside Maynard's secret room. Just then, Maynard arrived in time as well, because the alarm had been ringing everywhere. Only then did Maynard remember the maid, Marie. So Marie asked Maynard about the antidote's location. However, Maynard did not actually have it, because he had only purchased the poison itself. After hearing this, Marie burst into tears, because all of her efforts that day had been in vain. Unexpectedly, Noah was the one who had the antidote. It turned out he had successfully created it himself. Even more surprising, Marie was able to obtain it easily, so she quickly brought it back to Arthur. But before leaving, Marie kicked Maynard hard. Unexpectedly, Isabel also appeared there. This time, she came to stop the evil deeds that Maynard had committed against Arthur all along. Unexpectedly, Noah became the one protecting Marie this time. Because of that, she managed to return safely. Afterward, Marie quickly gave the antidote to Arthur. She hoped it would help him recover his memories. However, Arthur did not want to drink it, even though he did not know the reason himself. Arthur had a strong intuition. If he drank it, Marie would disappear. Right now, Arthur felt that this was already enough. Even though he had lost his memories, Arthur still had Marie by his side. As long as the maid named Marie was there, Arthur did not need anything else. At this moment, Marie decided to take the antidote and drink it herself. This was because Arthur firmly refused to drink it. After that, Marie honestly confessed everything. The entire truth was revealed by Marie. She herself was actually human. At first, Marie pretended to be a robot only for money. But the closer she became to Arthur, the more Marie wanted to protect him. At this moment, she confessed all her sins. So Marie believed it would be best for her to leave this place. Unexpectedly, she was stopped by Arthur. Arthur truly needed Marie, so he would not allow her to go anywhere. It seemed that Arthur's memories were beginning to return. He remembered the first image of the two of them together. At this moment, Arthur also revealed that he had fallen in love with Marie. He loved Marie for who she truly was. From the very beginning, Marie had always been gentle. That gentleness was the happiness she brought to Arthur. Arthur would absolutely not allow Marie to disappear, and he would never let her be lonely again. Thus, the two of them finally ended up together. As for Maynard, he unexpectedly received a ring from Arthur. This ring was passed down to the heir of Zeets. It turned out that Arthur wanted to give it to Maynard, because Arthur had now found the one he loved. The childlike Arthur from the past no longer existed. As for Noah, he was expelled from the world of assassins. This was because his defiance of Maynard's orders was exposed. As a result, Noah returned to a peaceful life. Seeing the person he loved become happy also made Noah feel happy as well. That's all for today's video. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to support Oni-chan in future videos. Thank you all for watching. Much love.